Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Seahawks free agency primer. I think we've done a pretty good job covering all the positions of big need and moderate need. So let's spend a little bit of time talking about the positions of, let's call it mild need. We need to look at it, we need to consider the angles, we need to strongly consider improving a little bit, but it's not a big deal. And at the end of the day, you can only do so much in one off season. I understand that. So I will be doing a quick roundup of some lingering concerns that some people may have with this roster. But I want to dedicate one video to the quarterback position because backup quarterback, it's not a big deal. It's not, especially when you have a quarterback who has only had a significant injury once in his career. But it has a chance of being significant, and the way in which we choose to attack the position is going to be interesting and maybe even telling. So I do want to dedicate a video to talking about the quarterback need, even though it's obviously not a huge deal. We are all in with Wilson for the moment. If that changes, then obviously our backup quarterback consideration has to massively change as well. But for the moment, we are all in with a $35 million a year quarterback, and we have to accept that if Wilson were to get hurt and miss any significant amount of time, it's not going to be fun. Like there's not a whole lot we can do about that. That's just the reality of the situation. So what we're trying to find with a backup quarterback is either a guy who can emulate the stuff that Wilson does at a reasonably high level to maybe hold down the fort for a couple of games, maybe sneak out a win, kind of the way Geno did last year against Jacksonville, or you just try to find some guy who's going to be as cheap as possible, who can hand the ball off and occasionally hit an open receiver. And the main concern is just that you don't spend big money on it, right? So here's the thing. I know it became trendy to hate Geno Smith last year, and he obviously made a fool of himself when the offseason started, which is one of the reasons why he's probably not going to come back. But if you want to get somebody noticeably better than Geno, you need to be willing to bring some money to the table here. Like, a lot of the people who really were getting on Geno Smith last year, what else do you expect from a guy making basically the veteran minimum? Like, honestly, I think Geno played fine last year, so if you want better, you better be ready to pay for it. So if you want to get a backup quarterback who is significantly better than Geno, like somebody who could actually consistently win against decent teams, like last year, Geno played 3 games against good teams. Well, really 2, and he played okay. He avoided turnovers pretty well, but ultimately he couldn't get it done. If you want to bring in somebody who's an upgrade on that, bring in somebody who could actually have a chance to win those games, there are 2 guys in this free agency class who I like. The first is Tyrod Taylor. Always liked this guy going back to Buffalo. He's getting a little older. He's going to turn 33 soon, but still has a little bit of game left. He played okay in Houston in 2021. Obviously, Houston's a pretty awful situation. I'm not going to hold that against him that much. I will say that the best thing about Tyrod Taylor is that he avoids turnovers. He's very safe with the ball. And in 2021, he did not avoid turnovers very well. He had a 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. But he's got the mobility. He can play kind of like Wilson. I think he can still do some of those things. I think he could be okay. You're gonna have to probably offer him. I mean, he got $5.5 million from Houston, but he was kind of being brought in as somebody to compete for the starting job. I feel like Tyrod's probably at the point now where he would accept a pure backup role, and you could probably get him for like 1 year, $4 million. But that's still significant. That's still more than it would be for a lot of these guys. So Tyrod Taylor would be my first look if you want to get an elite backup. And the only other guy who I think could be an elite backup quarterback would be Marcus Mariota. This guy, 28, might still want to start in this league, but I think that's a little bit of a pipe dream. He hasn't played that much the last couple years, but he's talented. He can do some stuff. He's been used not just as a backup these last couple years, by the way. He has been used a little bit as like an option quarterback almost, where they bring him on for a play or two a game. Now, if we brought him to Seattle, we would never do that because we don't do stuff like that. We're not creative enough, I don't think, unless Waldron has some grand plan to maybe incorporate that kind of stuff. But as of right now, I kind of doubt it. And look, if you're going to have a $35 million quarterback, you want him on the field as much as possible. I get that. I understand that. You don't want to take snaps away from him if you feel like he's that good. But Mariota knows how to use his legs, has some mobility, did some stuff as like the running quarterback in Las Vegas last year. I think you could probably get him for like $5 million, so it's going to cost something. But if you want an elite backup quarterback, that's what it takes. Okay, so with that being said, let's talk about the cheap options because I think this is more likely. I think we're just going to try to look for a guy who's on the Geno Smith level. And honestly, if we bring in a veteran minimum guy and he plays about as well as Geno Smith played for us in 2021, then I think we should consider ourselves fairly fortunate there. So we're looking for guys who are going to be willing to play for 1.4 mil at most, maybe 1.5. Hopefully vet min, which I think is going to be like 1.25 or something like that. So 1.25 million. The first guy, probably the best guy, is Colt McCoy. Number one, you get him out of the free agency market so he can't go anywhere else and beat you in 2022 because that's a concern. But beyond that, this guy's solid. He is getting old, which is a problem. He doesn't have the mobility that he used to. This is not Texas Colt McCoy. This is not Longhorn Colt McCoy. But he can still play. He can still read a defense. He can still check the ball down. Played, honestly, solid football for the Cardinals in 2021. Played a healthy amount. Had almost 100 pass attempts. Played efficiently, effectively. He won some games. He beat the crap out of us. And he's just an all-around capable quarterback. And I don't know if how he played in 2021 is going to get him a pay bump, but he actually played passably for the Giants in 2020, and it didn't get him any more money in 2021. So I think this guy's just kind of locked in a perpetual state of being a vet min plus player. So I would love to bring in Colt McCoy for the veteran minimum. That's probably my favorite option here. And the other guy who I want to spend a little bit of time talking about here would be John Wolford, formerly a Ram, just won a Super Bowl. He is an ERFA, so it's somewhat unlikely that he shakes free. But if he does, if the Rams decide to go in a different direction with their backup quarterback, I like this guy. I think he can play like Wilson. He's got good mobility, not a great arm or anything like that. He did successfully win a game. I think this was actually a game the Rams needed to make the playoffs in 2020, and he went out there and got it done. Not tremendous arm talent or anything, but he ran for almost 60 yards in that game. He can use his legs. So a little Wilson-like maybe, and he's young. This is an opportunity to maybe give your offensive coaching staff the ability to develop a guy a little bit because he's still developing. There's probably not a whole lot here other than a pretty good pair of legs. Obviously, he's undrafted. He doesn't have tremendous pedigree, but if he somehow shook free, which I doubt because he's an ERFA, he's somebody who caught my eye. He did start that playoff game against us 2 years ago, so little bit of experience, not bad. The last guy I want to talk about for a minute isn't even on the free agent list. I don't know if it's just because he hasn't played in a couple years, but Brent Hundley's kind of always been one of my guys. He's got decent size. He's got that Wilson-like mobility. I think he's about to turn 29. So I've liked this guy ever since UCLA. He's been in Seattle before, although he never played for us. Most of his experience comes from the 2017 season with the Packers when Rodgers went down. When Rodgers went down. He didn't play very well, but he's competent. He's probably about Geno Smith tier, which, hey, for the veteran minimum, I'll live with that. Believe me, I'll live with that, and I'll just hope that Wilson doesn't get hurt again because at the end of the day, that's just the bet you're always going to be making. So this guy, he can move around in the pocket. He can use his legs, had over 270 rushing yards in 2017 in 11 games. So there's some stuff to like here. He's a little Wilson-like. I think that Brent Hundley would be a nice pickup if Colt McCoy isn't available and you're just looking for somebody to emulate Wilson's play style. So that's it for backup quarterback. I wanted to spend some time diving into this in a dedicated video because even though it's not a big deal, there are multiple ways to attack the position. And I think it's interesting to explore both sides. There are a couple other guys who would be okay, like Jacoby Brissett, but he might be looking for something a little more, with a little more potential, let's say. Something with maybe a little bit of an opportunity to start, like win the starting job. Same for Teddy Bridgewater. He played okay in Denver, so he might not be looking for a pure backup job yet. And yeah, I guess that's about all you can say about it. So as of right now, obviously we're going with Wilson for he's the guy, but we need a new backup because I'll say this right now, and if you disagree, that's fine. But I don't believe in Jacob Eason at all. So you got to do better. I want Eason on my practice squad or not on the team at all. So bring me a backup quarterback who can emulate Wilson's style. If you want to spend the big bucks, go get Mariota. If you don't, go get Colt McCoy. And if everyone is gone and you're desperate, go get Brent Hundley. That's my say. Let me know what you think down below. Peace out. Go Hawks.